Yeah, and Vince is asking her if she's ever ridden in a Rolls-Royce before, and she's finally speaking up. She says no, she hasn't, and then Vince asks her if she'd like to ride in one, and she says she can't say that she has. Well, isn't that money?
Vince has literally opened a can of worms, and that can of worms is Susan White's mouth. Here she continues her eloquent verbal debut.
Vince is showing her a picture of the Rolls-Royce, and she says it looks great, and she wishes she could be in one right now. Seriously, how much convincing did Vince have to do to get Linda to agree to have this bimbo on TV?
We're going to the ring now, where we see the WWF TV debut of Basil DeVito, the WWF Director of Promotions. He was a key figure for 16 WrestleManias. He's talking about the largest sweepstakes that WWF has ever undertaken.
And then they reveal the winner of the Rolls-Royce is none other than Michael Hamley of Batavia, Illinois. They're really selling this as if Lord Alfred Hayes is John Cena or something. We then watch this segment die a horrible death as there are all kinds of jeers.
Now, Michael Hamley, if you end up getting into pro wrestling reviews and you ever hear this, respond back and we want to know. Did you actually get the Rolls-Royce? Did Susan White's kids get a ride in your Rolls-Royce?
Jen Okerlund is in the back with Hogan and he's cutting another promo. He's either looking at the wrong camera the entire time or he's reading cue cards. But either way, he looks quite unstable right now. Paul Orndorff is wandering around aimlessly too, as if he's ready to kill somebody. What's wrong with these boneheads?
They're still continuing the Piper and Orton feud after what took place. They basically say it's not over and we're coming for you. We have a surprise for Piper and Orton. It probably means the return of Mr. T, which would sound more appropriate given WrestleMania 2 occurs next year in 1986, with the boxing match with Hot. Rod, that's a long wait for that surprise.
We go back to ringside and Gorilla says they seem very thick to him. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Thick as thieves? Or maybe he just wants a milkshake.
So, now it's time for the WWF Wrestling Classic Tournament final as the Junkyard Dog faces off against the Macho Man, Randy Savage, who limps out in his tie, die number here with a purple headband.
It's quite unfair that the JYD has been sitting around sleeping, and I agree. The babyface should always be forced to face suitable competition and overcome adversity and possible injury in doing so. Make it fair and give everyone an even burden to carry. This is what you would do if you wanted Savage to be the babyface, but that's not what happened.
Randy gets the chair and throws it in the ring, and JYD catches it and hits himself in the head with it a bunch of times. Randy puts it up and stays out of dodge and jumps in and out of the ring, acting afraid to engage the JYD.
They finally lock up, and Savage just bumps off the push-offs. They took a total powerhouse and then a headbutt from JYD. Randy proves that I am a true contender here in the WF and will take my bumps to prove it.
Jen Okerlund then joins the announced position with Jesse and me. Jesse asks Gene if this is fair, and Gene mentions that it might not be fair, but this lack of fairness could have happened to anybody. It's a luck of the draw, and anybody could have ended up in a similar position.
Gene then totally destroys his credibility by saying this is one of the greatest spectacles of all time in professional wrestling.
Savage fires out of the corner and knocks down Junkyard Dog with a clothesline. JYD does the power kick out, and Savage goes flying across the ring.
Junkyard Dog then hits the floor, and Savage goes up top, drops the big sledgehammer off the top to the outside. Savage is actually getting over here as we can faintly hear the crowd rallying behind him.
He does it again by going to the top and bringing down the pain on JYD. He hits him with a chair, and the refs don't call it.
Savage begins choking Junkyard Dog on the rail, and a female fan funny tries to reach him with a swing with her program and tries to nail him and misses him.
From the back end, Savage comes off the top and a right hand to the gut by JYD as it catches him on the way down. A headbutt to Savage as he sells it tremendously as he gets hit 3 times.
Junkyard Dog then pulls Savage and almost peels him out of the corner. A headbutt and Savage ends up tied up on the ropes, Andre the Giant style. Junkyard Dog pulls off on him, and Savage breaks free and charges and takes a backdrop all the way over the top. This is the worst finish for any tournament. A count-out finish, are you fucking kidding me? Are you that lazy you can't just pin the guy? If the idea is to protect Randy Savage by not doing a finish, you've already protected him by doing the finish. Here Junkyard Dog is, and he's totally sucking wind and completely drenched as he's dropping cakes.
I hope you all enjoyed the Wrestling Classic as much as we have, and I would say no, not a good chance of that. And of course, we got to circle back to our friends Vince, Lord Alfred Hayes, and Susan. Vince asks Susan if she's ever seen action like this before. And Susan, in all of her eloquent linguistics, says, "I never have."
Well, if that is not an endorsement of the 1985 Wrestling Classic, ladies and gentlemen, then I don't know what is. It was the first ever WWF pay-per-view event and their first major tournament, but it was just not a good show.
I know, right? They had a killer lineup with lots of great talents and future legends, but they rushed everything to fit in the entire 16-man tournament plus a main event title match. No matches went over 10 minutes, and some were even under a minute.
And don't even get me started on the finishes. Most of them were disqualifications, countouts, or something else that didn't feel satisfying. Even Savage and Steamboat, 2 years before their legendary WrestleMania 3 bout, only had 3 minutes to work with. It was a waste of talent.
Exactly. And it's not like it was just 1 or 2 bad matches. The whole show was plagued by bad booking. I mean, who thought it was a good idea to have Davey Boy Smith lose by crotch injury? It was just senseless.
And the winner of the tournament, forget about it. They got there with one clean win. A pinfall they counted themselves without a referee. A bye in the semifinals and a count-out victory. It was a joke.
I'd only recommend this show to the most die-hard completists. Anyone else would be wasting their time.
Yeah, and it's not like there's anything to learn from this show either. Unless you want to know how to book a terrible 16-man tournament in a 2.5-hour show, then by all means, go ahead and watch it.
2 things really hurt this show beyond repair: the match lengths and the plethora of bad finishes. Most of the matches that weren't squashes were decent, but they had no time to tell a story or invest the audience. But they had no time to tell a story or invest the audience. And then you add in all the boring non-finishes.
Exactly. Booking a card this way just ties your hands behind your back. There's nothing about the Wrestling Classic that you can sink your teeth into. Short matches aren't always bad if they're booked well, and non-finishes have their place, but when you combine both, it's a recipe for failure.
And what was up with the referees? Sometimes they had the traditional 80s WWF refs in blue shirts with a bow tie, and then sometimes they had these generic-looking guys with white shirts and blue pants. It was like they just grabbed someone from ringside and told them to ref the match.
Yeah, it was just weird. All in all, the Wrestling Classic is a show that's best left forgotten